more like a centrist and a libertarian, not a Republican or a Democrat. Republican and Democrats divide and conquer. So with that being said, there are you're familiar with the term deep state, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now here's the thing. I don't like anybody really there are these candidates for president that were on the debate stage for Fox News. Don't like any of them because they're all talking about getting rid of the deep state, and yet none of them can define what the deep state is. So, for your listeners, I would like to define what that is, and I would like to define how it is that we can make the deep state obsolete. And I can do that in a very short amount of time. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, the founders defined tyranny as the combination of the three branches of government: legislative, lawmaking, executive, law enforcing, and judicial, law adjudicating. They defined tyranny as these three branches being consolidated into a central power, like what they were dealing with in England. Okay, because the crown controlled the courts, the crown made the laws, and the crown enforced those laws. Okay, so when the founders created our country, they divided these branches of government into three separate branches with checks and balances so that power could never be centralized. Okay, now when we turned our country into a debt-based currency nation, when we turned our country into a corporation and we had a debt-based currency, what happened is that these were steps toward the centralizing and the consolidating of these three branches of government of power into a single branch of government that we call the bureaucracy. So the bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. constitutes as like a fourth branch of government that is over 500 bureaucratic agencies that are tasked with regulating commerce. Now, the legislative branch has delegated to these bureaucratic agencies the ability to regulate commerce because the government has the ability to quote unquote regulate commerce. But these bureaucratic agencies are regulating commerce. What they're doing is they're basically writing law. They're saying what we can buy, what we can sell, what is legal, and what is illegal. Okay, so that's legislative. The bureaucrats also, these bureaucratic agencies also have their own law enforcement that enforce these regulations. Okay, that's executive. And they have their own administrative courts that adjudicate these regulations. That's judicial, that's centralized power, that is tyranny. Now, what it's really important to understand about each of these bureaucratic agencies is that they are a pyramid. Okay, they are a pyramid. And at the top of these pyramids are appointed people, not people that are elected. Now they are appointed by elected officials. So the president appoints these people and then they have to go through the process of being confirmed by the Senate. However, if you corrupt the presidency, which we've had lots of corrupt presidents, that should be very clear, especially when we get into the idea of elections being corrupted for decades. So if you have a corrupt president, and then you have corrupted enough people in the Senate, then you can get somebody that is a part of this corruption in these bureaucratic agencies and at the top, and then they stay there for way, way longer than the people that appointed them. And in the process, they can end up filling in the lower portions of the pyramid with people that are in cahoots with this corruption. Now, what is this corruption? Look at it like this. You got somebody like Anthony Fauci at the head of all of these 500 bureaucratic agencies. Okay. And what is Anthony Fauci doing? He's working with the very corporations that he is supposed to be regulating. So the corporations are writing the regulations, right? And then the government is enforcing the corporate will. So the government has a monopoly on the initiation of force. And they are using that monopoly on the initiation of force to reinforce these corporations' will and their monopoly over our resources and our labor. And in the process, these bureaucrats are moving public tax dollars, public money, into the private hands of less than 1% of the population that own these international corporations or these international banks like the Federal Reserve and the IMF and stuff like that. The international banking cartel, they're moving the public money, tax dollars, into the private hands of less than 1% of the world's population. The pharmaceutical companies, the military industrial complex, you know, biochemical, bioengineering corporations. The list goes on and on and on. Okay. Basically, it's what JFK called a tightly knit, highly efficient machine. And for those of you that are skeptical about what it is that I'm saying, I want to quote Kennedy, and then I'll end it on this, and I'll end it on the solutions, okay? Kennedy said, "We are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversions instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conspired vast human and material resources to create a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, scientific, economic, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No rumor is printed, no expenditure is questioned, and no secret is revealed." So Kennedy was talking about the deep state. Okay. He is talking about this bureaucratic mess that we have created of over 500 agencies that are colluding with international interests to monopolize our resources, to monopolize our labor, to keep us in a debt-based centralized currency, and to keep the American public in on this international move to a one world government through things like the WHO, the CDC, the UN, the World Bank, the IMF, etc., and through things like the Bilderberg Group, through things like the Council on Foreign Relations, through things like stuff going on at Bohemian Grove and stuff like that. The World Economic Forum. All of these things play a role. These are like gears in this tightly knit, highly efficient machine. Some of them are bigger gears, some of them are smaller gears. Some of them are near the top of the pyramid, some of them are near the bottom of the pyramid. That being said, this is how we make all this stuff obsolete, okay? The deep state is about creating something called full spectrum dominance. That's a military term. It means, first of all, the control of the minds through psychological warfare techniques, and through controlling the minds of the people in the country, they are able to then control the land and its resources, the water or the air, the water or the seas, the air and the airspace, subterranean, deep underground military bases, extraterrestrial, things like satellites, outer space, and chemical and biological agents, and technology, things like cell phones, computers, televisions, radio, etc. The medical system, the financial system. This gives these less than 1%ers who created this system full spectrum dominance. So they understood that they could not be God, but they could play God if they had full spectrum dominance. So this whole system is set up to basically be parasitic on humanity, on people, and on the environment. Okay. Now, I'm not a modern environmentalist. I don't believe in the climate change narrative, but I do believe in the notion of an ecological crisis and the notion that we are creating mass extinctions and mass ecocide because these corporations are working with the government to create a corrupt system that is destroying the environment so they can make money. Okay. So they have tried to centralize our energy grid. They have tried to centralize our communication grid. If you look into the way that they're trying to centralize the energy grid, you can just look at the way they're metering energy. They're trying to, they've already centralized our communication grid. If you look into the Ericsson report, and this company Ericsson that's out of Switzerland and owned by the Wallenberg family, and how they control all the global communication. They've also controlled and centralized our transportation and our supply chain largely. Through government regulations. They've also controlled and centralized our food supply. Okay. They've also controlled and centralized modern medicine. Right. So what we need to do is create a new system that will allow us to circumvent this full spectrum dominant system. And how we do that is, number one, through Tesla tower technology. Nikola Tesla invented a tower that uses the electromagnetic ley lines where they cross to create an infinite free wireless energy signal that allows people to tap into the free infinite energy that is in the earth itself and on the ley lines. And this would be wireless, so there would be no need to meter it. People could get infinite free clean wireless electricity. So that decentralizes the energy grid. These towers can also be used as communication towers globally without the need for satellites, cell phone towers, radio towers, any of that stuff. And it would all be environmentally friendly. Okay. All these satellites and all of these cell phone towers, they're using what are called ELFs, extremely low frequency waves. And these things cause depression, anxiety, neurological disorders, cancer, all sorts of stuff. So now with the Tesla towers, we decentralize the communication grid. It also would allow us to influence agriculture, because you can use the frequencies of the Tesla towers to increase the size and the rate of the plants that we grow for food. Okay, all without the need for pesticides, herbicides, etc. It would also enable us to create a new transportation system, because we could use these electromagnetic ley lines as like electromagnetic highways of sorts, where we could travel in them on the air, like through the air. Okay, and we could do this through vehicles that Nikola Tesla created himself over 100 years ago, or we could use it using the TR-3B, a patent that Donald Trump just released. It's a triangular shaped craft that uses inertia propulsion or anti-gravity technology. He released this patent. He declassified it in 2020. People that want to look it up, they can look up the guy that tried to that filed for the patent. His name is Salvador Payas. Okay. He also filed for a patent for something called a zero-point energy engine, gives people infinite free energy, and a room temperature superconductor that allows the zero-point energy engine to function without overheating. So we have all of the tools at our disposal that we need to create a new decentralized energy grid, decentralized communication grid, a new form of agriculture, a new form of transportation. And Dr. Rife, that's R-I-F-E, Royal Raymond Rife, and Nikola Tesla were working together in the 1930s to create a machine that uses sound and frequency to not just increase health, but also destroy disease. The way that you can destroy a wine glass with sound and frequency, you can also destroy a cancer cell or a virus with sound and frequency without doing any damage to healthy human tissue. So this is how we can create this decentralized grid. This is how we can create a new infrastructure that makes the old one obsolete. So it's not about fighting the old. It's about using our energy to build something new. And in the process, we can get away from this system that is parasitic on humanity and on the planet. And we can also neutralize all the pollution that has been created by this system. And this pollution is what is called anthropogenic chemicals, forever chemicals that do not biodegrade. And because they don't biodegrade, they do something called bioaccumulation in the ecosystem that causes the microbiological life in the soil, the water, and the air to be killed off. And it is that microbiological life in the soil, water, and air that allows all macrobiological life and systems to function. So if we kill and undercut that foundation, then all life on the planet goes extinct. So we are talking about fighting for the very existence, not just of the human race as a whole and our children, but also of all life on the planet. If we continue to trust these less than one percenters, if we continue to use their centralized, monopolized grid system, and all we have to do is work together and unite, because Republicans and Democrat voters can agree. If there's a cure for cancer, I just gave you one, and there are many, it should be released to the public in spite of the fact it'll have a detriment on pharmaceutical interests, right? And it's the FDA and the NIH that are stopping this technology from getting to the public. If there's an infinite free, clean, wireless energy supply, which I just gave you two, zero-point energy engine and Tesla towers, then it should be released to the public, in spite of the fact that it'll have a negative impact on oil companies, on lithium mining, on solar panels, on wind turbines, and natural gas, right? If there's a better form of agriculture that doesn't use disease-causing pesticides and destructive pesticides like Tesla tower technology, it should be released and used by the public, right? Everybody can agree on this stuff. So that's how we create unity. That's how we get rid of the deep state. That's part of it. We also have to elect people into the legislative branch and the executive branch that have cojones, and they're willing to defund some of these government agencies. And they're willing to say, okay, we're not going to fund these agencies. You guys are corrupting the system. We're going to allow these technologies out to the public, and we're going to allow the free market to do its job. We don't live in a free market right now because we have corporate interests dictating government policy. That's fascism. Okay, so we're kind of living in a fascist system right now. What we really need is real capitalism, real freedom, and a decentralized grid. So I hope that wasn't too much.
Yeah, no, it's again, there's areas that you and I agree on, and taking back this beautiful country, getting it away from those that seek to profit off of all of our labor and destroy the earth. I look forward to a day when that can be true. I want to thank you, Jake, for coming on and sharing your story with us. I hope that people will find it interesting and have a perspective shift. But thank you very much again for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
can I plug my Twitter and my website?
Oh, yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so you can find me at America Shaman. That's America Shaman on Twitter, at America Shaman on Twitter. You can also go to my website, ForbiddenTruthAcademy.com. That's ForbiddenTruthAcademy.com. At ForbiddenTruthAcademy.com, we have free courses that people can take. We have, like 12 hours worth of podcasts for the Forbidden Truth podcast. And we have dozens of hours worth of content via like interviews and these courses and all of this stuff. We also we are just about to get up our merch, so there's really nothing. The only thing that's on ForbiddenTruthAcademy.com that costs anything is the merch. And if you want me for a consultation regarding spirituality or shamanism or history or politics or philosophy or whatever, but everything else is free.
Okay.
And that's the way we want to keep it, because we don't believe that people should be charged money for hearing the truth.
Great. Thank you again for coming on. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you.